Okay, let's do some learning. All right. Okay, we are playing a game. Are going to analyze a game from who? Emmanuel Lasker. Oh yeah, he's the he's the guy that everybody should model after. He started a lot of revolutionaries in how he played. He wasn't set on just one set of play. He wasn't a modern player. He was whatever he needed to be, and that's what made him the best of the best. So let's see how he takes chess to the whole new level. He's facing a player named Henry Edward Bird. And I believe this is the gentleman that might have made the bird opening. So we'll have to see. Okay, let's dive right into it. Oops, I gotta flip the board because that's who's playing Emmanuel Lasker. We want to see it from his point of view. All right, so at with the Henry, or we'll call him Bird. Bird did F3, F4, and Emmanuel Lasker played D5. So when they counter in the center, when you counter in the center, your opponent should either try to challenge the center or counter strike on the side. And the same goes with whatever side. If White had counter struck on this side here, probably, like, we'll just go back really quick. If he had played, I'll show you this move here. Emmanuel Lasker probably would have played E5, challenging the center, making sure that he has the ability of an attack right there, and so that everything will work out good. Okay, so I just wanted to show you that type of setup. So we're going to go back to the game, and now Bird plays E3 and Emmanuel Lasker plays G6. This is an interesting line. He's setting up so that he can actually fianchetto a bishop, so it can get a better open file. So he doesn't want to play E6. Maybe he wants to play bishop G7, and potentially after the knight comes in, play bishop to G4, attacking the queen. And there's a lot of different reasons that you play this. This is also in case they want to really fastly castle too. So he could actually castle quick too in 3 moves. Where potentially it would maybe take a little longer. But he's setting up for a good attack. Let's see how he does it. Knight F3, bishop G7. Then he plays C3. This idea stops basically. This is kind of an interesting idea. I think it's preparing to lock down with B4, A4, and then maybe get the pawns rolling that way. Let's see here. I have to check this out. Siege 3. This is a tricky one. If you guys have any comments you want to put in, you're more than welcome to. Okay, this I don't think. Oh, I see what he wants to do. He wants to be able to stop Black's dark. Oops, I'm on bed there. Black's dark squared bishop, and at the same time potentially play G3, knight, maybe B2, or B3, knight B2, or maybe he wants to, like what we're seeing, lock down the position like this. But that's a really odd looking move. I think he probably should have just developed a knight. And if he's going to go down that route, probably Emmanuel Lasker would have probably knight here, G. Probably would have came in, bishop, knight takes, bishop takes, bishop takes. I think this is what Bird was kind of afraid of, this type of pawn structure that would have came down the board. So to prevent all that, he went C3. and so that's kind of interesting. I think it might be a dubious move in my opinion. I don't think doesn't develop. Knight f3. See, Amanda Lasker has how many pieces developed to Bird's 1 to 2. So he's got a lot of time, and so now I think he's thinking about playing into here. A6. That stops any poking in. He probably wanted to play via b5 into d4. That'd be an interesting idea. A6, castles, knight c6. He's coming back. He's coming back another route. Rook e8, knight to e5. This provokes a knight takes move. Really good move. Then knight d7. Now he's threatening to win this pawn, and so d4 is an important move now. And now Manuel Lasker has a more intact pawn structure. He has one pawn island. Let's look at. See the pawn islands? That's one. Bird has two. One here, and surprisingly, this is a pawn island because they're all connected. So 2 versus 1 in an endgame. Manuel Lasker would have a stronger position. So f6. He's trying to crack open the center, and this is a really interesting move. I think it's kind of a slightly questionable. It makes sense, but it allows black to white to play the, e6, which if a player did that, the pawn would fall. So this is provoking more likely f takes or e takes to f6, e takes f6. And then now Manuel Lasker has the complete open e file, which or half open e file, which he dominates. So his opponent ain't gonna give him any of that. And so Manuel Lasker plays knight b6, covering the pawn, preparing to play c6. Knight comes in maybe, or maybe unleash the bishop with pawn there. There's a lot of play still left in the board. So takes. Now he again controls the open file. So there's b3, and more likely the bishop's probably going to go to b2. Oh, knight d3. Interesting. Keep intact the. I think the reason he played this move back here was so that in case he actually can come out via either a3 or b2. So he's holding that. He's trying to Manuel Lasker's trying to protect his pawn, and also allow the knight to develop. I think also the reason he played b3 too back here was actually to prevent the knight from infiltrating in via a4 and c4. So I think that was probably the main play. So interesting. Okay, so he retreats back with the bishop. Now Manuel Lasker's position solid as a rock. So is Bird's, but one thing Manuel Lasker has that Bird doesn't have is space. Bird is getting cramped right now, and Manuel Lasker is just going to start tightening the screws, as they like to say. Knight d7. Next, he'll play knight f8 into knight to e6 into knight to g5, and then and then he'll have a nicely planted knight on e4. That takes though 4 moves. But remember, the position is closed, so he has time. It's a static position over a dynamic position. And a knight actually in a static position is superior to a bishop. In a dynamic position, bishop's stronger majority of the time. Except if the pawns are on one side of the board. So queen f2, bishop e7, bishop c3, rook c8. Interesting setup here. He's getting ready to poke at c5 here and see if he can't take, and then potentially he has a rook en route. Everything's getting a little bit tighter and tighter and tighter, as we like to say, tightening it up. e3, not letting any weakness. Emmanuel Lasker's not letting any weakness in. Bishop d2 and f5. Here we go. Now he did this. This is an interesting continuation. He gave up the protection of d5, but he does have enough defenders. He's got 4. He also wants to eventually plunk his knight in on f5. That would be an idea. So he'd have a double pawn, and then he could always, if he wanted to, take that way. And interesting position for sure. g4. And if you have any games you want to put in, more than happy for you to put them in. We'll go over them. Bishop e7, e6. And let me see here. One moment. Okay, there we go. And so he played G. Let me go back really quick. So bishop e6. That's in case he takes here. Bishop will take. He doesn't want to allow takes and then takes. That shatters his pawn structure. So he wants to take with the bishop. Queen g2. This is an interesting position for white, because if takes here, the bishop takes, queen takes. It's starting to look a little loose for white right now, and white's going to start feeling the pain. So he takes, and knight f6. Here comes the hero. Now, with all the pieces gone and there's nothing that could actually attack the knight on f6, the bishop can't because it's an opposite color of the square. The knight would have to do a lot of attacking. And this actually makes it so that the bishop has to retreat one of these two squares. More likely, the bishop would have to go to e1. When the bishop goes to e1, it breaks lines of communication with these two rooks. So that's what Emmanuel Lasker is thinking about playing. So in it comes. And now rook to f3. Very interesting continuation. He's preempting that if Lasker takes on d2, that the queen would take back, and this pawn's protected twice. So, and then Bird's planning on doubling up rooks. These two rooks here, right here. So it's going to be an interesting continuation, and we're loving it. We're going woo woo right ahead. Bring on the artillery rounds. Then it's bishop h6, and then there's knight at e5. Because remember, with that pawn gone from knight to e5, black's not the only one that could block a knight on e. Black has his on e4, and white has his on e5. And so they're basically Bird's saying, what you gonna do? What you gonna do? My knight's coming for you. Hey, bishop g7. And so he's like, Emmanuel Lasker's like, bring it. I'm gonna take your knight here, and after you take back, I'm gonna win a pawn. And I'm gonna be a whole pawn up, and I'm gonna go into an endgame where I'm completely winning. So the knight has to go, oh no, I made a mistake by coming forward. I allowed Emmanuel Lasker to get his bishop into a better spot, and he had to move his knight back. So, not very good. And back there. Now, actually, surprisingly, if Bird wanted to, I think Emmanuel Lasker might have gone for a draw here, because it's equal position. I think they might have repeated. But Bird wanted more, and sometimes when you push for more, even though the position's a drawn position, you can end up losing the entire game just because you want to push. Remember, sometimes a win is a draw. One sec, let me get a drink. Let's do it. Then there's knight e5 again. Bishop there. Knight d. So he is trying to. And Madalascar was like, nah, not going to happen. I'm more superiorly positioned. Why would I give up and get a draw? But sometimes they actually move 2 times. They might get 30 extra seconds, so they might Madalascar might have gotten a minute for just going back and forth. And then he makes a different move, and there's no threefold repetition. So he takes here, takes. Now let's take stock of the position here. Stock of the position is this: that Bird now has 3 pawn islands. 1 and 1, 2, and 3. Madalascar has 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are 1 pawn island, 1 pawn island, and so Bird has 3 pawn islands to Madalascar's 2. He's a traditional player. He understands that if he goes into an endgame at the present moment right now, he'll be in a 1 position where Bird's going to have to keep it in the middle game, unless he can provoke a weakness by maybe getting rid of one of these a4 pawns. His a4 pawn, or maybe his h pawn. When at that moment, he will have a 2 pawn islands, and then it would be an equal position. Right now, black is slightly better. c5, kaboom! He's trying to make a Bird having basically 4 pawn islands, and kapow! Now it's time to win the bishop, and he's going to start crippling white. And black's now coming in for the kill. That's the one thing that grandmasters, even the ones that weren't considered grandmasters, like, they didn't have ELO ratings till recently. So Madalascar would have been considered a GM, and he smelt blood. He's like, this is the time to strike. So he comes in very, very, very fast. Now he's threatening to actually win a pawn by takes, and bishop takes. And that would actually be a devastating one with a check. So it'd be like a knock knock. Here comes a shock. Rook A to F1. Boom! That's power. You got to admit that there is power there. But remember, he still has to worry about losing a pawn, and he's going to lose a pawn. Here it comes. There we go. That pawn is dropping. And the best thing that I think white can actually play is f7 here, trying to poke at. Well, doesn't that lose a knight? Oh, nice little tricky. That's smart. That's a really good one by Bird. If you take this knight, he can actually play rook takes f8, rook f8 check. Excuse me. When you take here, the queen will take, and it will be a check on the king, and your whole position falls apart. Always look for, why didn't my opponent give me a piece? Sometimes they're setting up for a stalemate. Sometimes they're setting up for a sweet discovery like this. You gotta love that. Now Madalascar is up 2 whole pawns. 1 now. And now he's pinning the knight to the rook, and he's going to start trying to go into an endgame where, again, he's 2 pawns up. Takes. But now in comes the check. You gotta love this. He can't intercept here. He's going to have to actually come king to, I guess he could go to king h1. Then takes. Very interesting. Takes. Rook e1. Check. Now he's taken another pawn. So now he's 3 pawns up. Bird's trying to go after this pawn here, and Manulaskir's like, nah, not gonna happen. Rook d6, or d3, I mean, and then bishop c5. And now there's no real way. He's in a complete losing position. So if he takes here, this knight drops. And if the knight moves, the bishop takes, rook takes. He's getting closer to an endgame. And even if rook takes, pawn takes rook here, Manulaskir's got this move, and he'll pick it up, and he still has his two connectors. Once all these pieces go off the board, even this pawn for that, let's say he loses this whole sector over here, but all these pieces come off the board, these two warriors right here will win the day. So let's say yeah, I think that then the game ended here. Bird resigned. So we're gonna do two more, and then we'll do some puzzles. Oh yeah, puzzle. Let's do it to it. Excelente. And here we go. We're gonna get on to this one right here. Okay, so we have rook. We have Manulaskir is black again. For some reason, a lot of the older games that they showed, Manulaskir is black. So now we're going f4. Bird does a lot, very similar, a lot of the f4. Oops! Oh my bad. I am so sorry there. Somehow it got pushed up there. Now. Same opening, very similar. Uh-oh, 1 second. One moment. Right, we're back. Excellent. Okay, so let's see what we have here. Excellent. I just want to check to see. Okay. I just had to check to make sure everything was okay, if there was any comments. Knight f3. There we go. Castles. And then b6. The idea of b6 is we're going to take and start attacking the center if he wants to do that. It also prepares for Manulaskir to play b6, which then keeps the whole line. So it looks like it's going to be closed, but it ain't closed. b4, bishop b7, a4, Then knight d7. Do you see how it's kind of like a stonewall setup here that he's setting up? White is. But it's the traditional stonewall bird opening. It's pretty cool. Castles, rook c8, and now he's getting ready to play c5. Pawn takes, pawn takes, pawn takes, rook takes, and he's got an open file or half open file controlled by Emmanuel Lasker. There it is, c5. Here it comes. Takes. I think he was predicting that. So now if he plays c4, surprisingly, even though these pawns are white's pawns are connected, he's indirectly made a isolated pawn. Let's see if he could do that. Oh wow. Okay, yeah, I see what. That's not too bad of an idea, but I don't know. I think I might have played e5, c5 or 4 here. I mean, I think I might have played c4 here. Then play knight takes, knight takes. We're still good. The bishop has to move, so c4. If the bishop stays on this diagonal, then you actually could potentially play e6. It's interesting for sure. Rook c7, rook a2, and what he was doing is he pushed the rook out, and here comes c6. I think it's getting close to like what we're saying, where Manuel Lasker's tightening up the position and white's running out of space. The only squares he has for his knight are these two here. Only square for his rook is here, here, here. This rook does have more scope. This bishop only has two spots these spots to go to. So it's looking pretty scary, almost resignable for a bird. Knight d2, queen b8. That prevents this move. He also wants to potentially play rook a7, and when rook takes a7, queen takes a7, he's got the open file. So rook a7 here, takes, and then bishop b2, and here comes the pawn. Now everything is starting to get squeezed. He now has the this idea of playing knight into maybe e4, pawn takes e4, maybe knight reroutes in. It's a little tough position still. He takes the knight here, queen takes, knight takes, and that's a winner right there. Game. That was a blunder by the way, by white. In a position when you're like this, sometimes you just completely blunder. He should have actually just taken here, and then when queen takes, rook takes, I think it's still playable. It might even be slightly better for white. So I'm sure probably Bird would have done that, but I don't know why he actually did. He just blundered. Goes after takes, and your whole exchange up. It's sad, very sad. Okay. Excuse me. Okay, let's, oops, we're going to do Emmanuel Lasker. I think, I want to make sure we did this one. Yep. Let's make sure he's black again. So e4, c5, knight c3, knight c6. So Emmanuel Lasker is doing a different move order. Bird's actually finally doing something different beside the bird opening. He's going more of a Sicilian. Queen, bishop g3, or g2, with the idea of potentially this line opening up the h1 to a8 diagonal. And now Emmanuel Lasker now has his bishop on a good diagonal, so it's crisscrossing each other. d6. It looks very symmetrical. The same type of setup. Here, here, almost the same type. It's kind of interesting looking for sure. Then there's h5, bishop d2, d7. Looking pretty good for Manuel Lasker. And so knight d2, rook d1, and then e5. And now he's got a almost cemented knight. There is one way that white could kick it out with c3, and that's what he did. The knight comes back, but remember, what did Emmanuel Lasker accomplish? He did weaken d5 here, but he locked down the d4 square. So a very important break for white cannot be played, which would be d4, because it would cost too much material for him to handle. Well, I'll show you. If he plays here, takes, right? Takes, bishop takes, and then pawn takes. And Emmanuel Lasker's up one whole pawn. Even though they're doubled, he has a passed isolated pawn. Isolane. So, just wanted to show you that. So, knight e2. And an interesting thing I noticed about when he played against Bird, he knew that Bird had an issue. We're just going to talk for a second about closed positions. So he always set up a closed position where Bird couldn't withstand attacking, which ended up costing him the game. Very interesting position here, very double-edged. If he takes here, then probably pawn takes. Maybe not. Maybe if takes here, takes, probably bishop takes, and then now Emmanuel Lasker will probably play around his isolated pawn. He has all of his pieces still on the board, and potentially after knight f6, castle kingside, he'll probably mobilize all of his forces and go for a complete knock-knock on the position. So he comes there, bishop takes, knight takes. So now again he's mobilizing everything. The interesting thing is how both kings are in the center. They're not really at this present moment worrying about king safety because of how closed the position is. Here, it's all there. No pawns have been traded off, so it's actually okay for the kings to be in the center. If white tries to keep maneuvering his pieces around, black can actually justify himself to play king f7 so that he can connect his two rooks and get his rooks involved. And white might actually at that moment castle kingside. So it's going to be interesting. Takes. So Bird's trying to open stuff up. Queen side. Oh yes. Now he's going to try to say to Bird, "What are you doing, bro?" And Bird kind of obliged him by locking down the queen side. By this move, I am not so sure that was the best continuation. I do not know. I think maybe he could have tried maybe taking here, and then had takes, maybe this. But I think what he was afraid of is this queen, this rook opening onto the queen. He still could actually play this way, have the bishop, or what he could do is if takes here, he can actually play knight comes in too. That's an idea, and then prepare bishop c6, and then d5, d4, something like that position. But he pushed, which I think that might have been a slightly one of the losing moves. Let me get a sip of water and we'll get started again. Thank you for obliging me with my drinking there. Didn't mean to drink in your ear. Okay, queen c2, queen to h7. There's an idea. I think Emmanuel Lasker wants to play h4 here. And then if pawn takes h4, he wants to actually play maybe f4 here. And I think that is a crushing continuation if he's able to get that in. Let's just say that black castles here. I think this is actually what he's wanting, and then after this move here, he might be playing that move and then taking. But this still is kind of scary. I don't know if he would have allowed a protected pass pawn. So he might have actually taken here, taken, and then he would have had the pass pawn. And I still think that black's winning because of this outside pass pawn. I don't see any advantage. So he castled there. So here, castles. Rook g, hg8. He's preparing that this pawn push. If he pushes this way, takes, and takes, he can maybe put a knight there. So they're all. Do you notice how they're all sensing that the king side's going to be the side that's going to be attacked? They know that there's no really queen side attack here. They're either going to be playing for a center thrust, and Emmanuel Lasker said, I want to bust open the side. And if he could bust it open, he'll be able to basically win. But if white can hold his attack down, there's probably going to be a draw. And that's probably okay for Emmanuel Lasker, but he wants to go for the win. Knight a6. The idea is knight a6 to c7, and then maybe even I think that's his idea, but I'm not sure where he'd want to place his knight if he wants to. After he plays c7, he might want to play it over here, but I'm not sure if there's any potential. I also think that this idea puts a little pressure on d4, which would make it so that he's provoking c4, which then locks down the queen side, which gives him full play on the king side. I think that's kind of the idea. So knight c7, and there you go. He's provoked what he wanted. Rook g7, and now he's going to slide his rook d8 to g8. So he's poking right back in. Now he wants to come in and into h4, because this he saw that each pawn move has a weakness. When this pawn move moved from c3 to c4, my friends, it gave up the protection of b4. So Emmanuel Lasker can actually, put his knight in there, provoke a3, which then starts loosening up white's position. And after a3, he can just come back again and say that white's pawns are kind of messed up on the queen side. There you go. So Bird actually obliged. He's probably thinking of playing b4 maybe, and maybe Lasker will play king b8 prophylactically, getting prepared for that. But no, he ain't letting down. He's getting ready for f4. He's preparing it. And comes the knight. That's a very nice move too, because now he's threatening to win this pawn on f7 here, or f2, and that really will make a mess for Bird. And he doesn't want to actually take here, because what range does the bishop have? And he comes back, probably he would take here. I'm not sure. This might actually be still a draw. He might actually not want to play something like this. He would have to grind out an endgame, so I think that's why Bird didn't take. But I think it might have actually been better for Bird to actually have taken the knight here and kind of tried to neutralize the attack and maybe go into a draw. But he wanted to now. He's thinking about playing on the queen side, but there's just too much attack. He just was blinded to his attacking hope. Now there's check. Takes, and now the knight's going to come back, and he's threatening to attack here. And then if knight takes, rook takes, actually he can't, because yeah, Bird's basically in full defense mode right here, and Emmanuel Asker's like, this is how I want it, and he goes, this is how I want it, yeah. And he goes knight to e3. This is a really good move there. He's moving back. He's realizing he made a slight mistake, so he's moving back, trying to, if he plays here, to see if he can't maybe get some attack going. Because see, Bird's threatening the this pawn because it's being attacked twice, so that's why it's a really good move. And now it's only attacked once, and you're like, but what about the bishop? The bishop got blunted by this knight coming in here, so it's 1-1. He comes back, the king comes up. Now this is a pretty interesting position. He might start thinking about walking his king over eventually. After everything gets, all these pieces get traded off here. If they ever get fully traded off, it's going to be interesting to see whose king's best. And I think Emmanuel Asker has a winning endgame here. It's pretty strong. So he plays b3. He wants to stop any king infiltration in case pieces get off the board. And b5. Here it comes. Emmanuel Asker sees he can't make any progress in the center or on the king side, so now he senses the time. The majority of the pieces are on the king side, so he smells it's time to attack, and he goes boom with b5. So he takes, bishop takes. Now he created an isolated pawn on what? d5, and now he can start honing his attack on it. Back here, come around, come up, come, and then he can even now potentially, if he wants to, after maybe somehow getting this pawn safe, bring the knight back, bring the bishop back here, attack this pawn. Now, he's going to be able to do it. He found a way to do it. He's protecting this pawn, and he's going to play knight f6. Very nice move. And then he's basically going to move his king over to b7 and bring his other knight to c7. Very good. I think now maybe Bird should have actually just traded off the knight here for his bishop. Maybe he just should have just done that and then tried to, with all of his might, hold on to his weak pawn here by trading down. But I still think Emmanuel Asker has a slight advantage, maybe a half a pawn in that move. So there it is. Now he's getting the rolling, as I like to say. Takes. Boy, this is very interesting of a position. He wants to come around via probably into e5 here. And probably lock something down, maybe a6, come around this way. Maybe even rook up, and I don't know, there's a lot of play here. Check. So bird has a passed pawn. He's trying to push it. Check. Alaska, this is getting interesting. They agreed to a draw here because I don't think there's any way they can make any progress. Alaska is going to win this pawn. Burst has an outside pass pawn. I think with proper play they would actually win. This would be a one position, probably for Alaska, but he's like, I don't want to risk losing because of having an outside passer, so he just basically cashed in and said, you know what, it's better to have a draw than a loss, which is smart. Remember, sometimes in a tournament it may come down that all you need is a draw to win, so you have to keep that always in your forefront, that a draw isn't bad. If you're tied and you're the person who is, let's say you have a 6-round game, right? You both won 5, then your opponent lost. The person who, is equal to you in rating for points lost. Now it's 5-0, right? You can get 5.5 by just drawing, and then you become first and you win the whole entire pot of money. That's good. That's a good day. So just keep that in your forefront. And if the player's higher level than you might even get some points in the process. So congrats on that. So let's see, what do we want to do here? I think probably we'll call it right here for right now, and pick up tomorrow. Wanted to thank you all for logging on and participating. And remember, like what we always say, chess crunching is fun when you come to Chess Cruncher and Chess Cruncher TV. And like what we always say, remember to honor the Lord Jesus. And like what I say is, God bless, my friends. And I'll see you next time. Be blessed. Bye-bye. And keep playing chess, because Chess Cruncher loves you. Hey, how you guys doing? Welcome back. Let's do it to it. Okay, we're gonna be doing some French defense. Now we're gonna have to turn the board. We're doing some games from Grandmaster Simon Williams. So let me get a sip of water here, and we're gonna get a rockin' and a rollin'. Okay, let's do it. Okay, now his opponent is Nickel R. Reuter. We'll just call him Reuter. And this is, of course, Ginger GM, our Simon Williams. So we'll just call him Williams. Okay, let's do it. Reuter is white, and Reuter plays E2, E4, E6, and D5. This is the start of the French defense. After this, the French defense is basically begins. I'm just going to go back really quick, and you're going to be able to see. The first moves you have to remember is if it goes E4, you go E6, D4, and then D5. You see that? Now you're in the French defense. And then there's like 5 or 6 different variations that we're going to go down. And let's see which one he goes. I think they play, if I'm not mistaken, the exchange variation. This is one of the most dullest, boring kind of French defenses, but it all comes down to one thing. Who is the strongest player? And who knows, their lines so much better than the other people. And Simon Williams, of course, is a master of the French defense, and he will outplay his opponent, Rudder, versus Williams. And so we're going to see what Rudder played now after this. He played knight to f3 and bishop g4. Bishop g4 is an interesting move. It allows for the bishop to attack right on through to the knight.
See, remember, we're not really into a closed position. We're actually into an open position where it's a complete equal game. Pawns are the same in the center, and now black's bad light squared bishop is now a good piece because it can flow this way, and the black piece can flow this way. So both of them can actually come into the fight now without any problems. So it's who knows their patterns of tactics the best. And so he attacks Simon Williams. Williams drops back. Rudder also now plays e2 with the queen check. What he's trying to do is disrupt Williams's play by playing bishop. He wants to play bishop f, and he might actually be able to get these two moves in and be better. But so now what he's figuring, Simon Williams, is that he's going to if takes and then bishop takes, then knight takes, and he's entered into basically a close to a semi-end to a game, and he's going to be going in for a big attack here. So let's see what we got going on here. Hold on really quick. I want to make sure that I'm not having too much going on at one time. Let's see here. There we go. There we go. And perfect. Okay, just wanted to make sure so that there'd be no glitches or any of that stuff. Okay, so now let's get back. It plays 7 plays e7, and the reason we find out is if white trades here, he welcomes the trade because Simon now is actually in the driver's seat. And if white tries knight e3, knight f3, bishop comes out. Let's say bishop comes out here. There, he comes back. Actually, he can come back or he can come back here. Probably the best continuation would be bishop. I'm going to remove this here. Bishop d3, keeping this diagonal. And now Simon can actually develop to knight to b d7, with knight potentially coming in this way, or potentially knight coming in this way, and then coming in here and getting the rooks involved. He also has the potential of a pin here, so like if you didn't want to play that but you wanted to kind of tickle the knight a little bit, you could do that, and then this. And he probably could castle, and the castles, I don't see, there is a idea of coming in here, but it's kind of slow. So do we want to actually have that, or do we want, I think this doesn't have a lot of, but remember he can actually take there. So I'm thinking in this way of rerouting everything. And there's also an idea too, I gotta go back here, where bishop to g3 is a huge idea. I mean g6 is a huge idea. After bishop takes, there's some that believe that taking here because you get an open file is actually a good idea, and then there's some that say that taking towards the center is better. It all depends. And if, let's say, rook comes over here, you have takes here, takes there, and then the knight pops in. And now it's going to be an interesting. It's a semi-closed game, so we'll get to see how everything starts flowing. So now the bishop intercepts so that does not happen at all. Then knight c6, knight c3, and then castle queenside. Simons knows that his opponent may castle kingside, but I doubt it because of how clustered the pieces are. So castle queenside. So now it's a game of positional play. Who can out positionally move their opponents? And so Simon starts off first with bishop b4, with the idea of potentially bishop a5, and then maybe potentially pushing the pawns down the board, maybe after queen a5, a6, b5, and then b4, and then undermining the a2 pawn. So pawn g4. When stuff's locked in the center, which the pawns are all locked here, the play is going to be on the side of the boards, which the side of the boards are the queen side here, and the king side. So this right here is the king side. I'm just going to draw the arrows. And this right, oops, not up there. And this is the queen side. So queen side, king side. And that's where the play is going to be done. Because the center is fully locked. This is considered the center. And then there's the, I'll show you something. A lot of individuals don't know this, but you will. There's something called the outer center, which is this. This is your outer center here. But this is the inner center right here. This is where everybody strives. But you're always wondering, why do knights position it around these squares? It's because they're attacking the center and are also starting to control the outer center, as I like to say. Okay, so now he plays back bishop to g6. White's trying to expand on the king side, and he has a lot of his. The reason he's doing that is he's got a lot of pieces on the king side. But remember this: your pieces are only important if they're doing something. Right now, White's pieces aren't really doing anything. The bishop's kind of stuck right now. It has no good spot to go to. The bishop over here is really confined. So that's probably, I think, why he played g4 was to actually replace his bishop on b4. I mean b2, so that he can actually hammer this pawn here and connect the rooks. Simon Williams isn't in any better situation at all either, because he has his two pieces are at home, blocking in this beautiful rook right there. So he has to unwind his knight on g8 and his bishop on f8. So let's see how he does that. And now he's moving a piece twice. I don't really like White's decision here. I think it's a very bad move. I think potentially he might have to retreat back here. His idea is to get this pawn push here, but you don't want to trade off your most beautifulest pieces. Like, this is a semi-closed position. It's very bad to trade off knights. And if he's thinking about trading off this bishop for the knight, I think Simon Williams would be okay with it. But he does lose one thing. This bishop does have a nice scope. So it's White has three pieces excuse me, that are developed, and black only has three. I'm sorry, forgive me on that one. White has four pieces developed. 1, 2, 3, 4. Black has three pieces developed. So if he can trade off one of his pieces for that, he'll have a 3-piece development over Simon's 2, which gives him a little bit of time. So he's better, step on it if he's going to take. And he does. Wow. This unleashes the rook. Now these pieces really he doesn't have to worry about moving these two pieces right away. This rook now has an half-open file that he's now sniping this rook here. Always remember something. When you, even though a pawn's in the way or a piece, let's just say these pieces were in the way here, and I'm just going to play a move here. This wasn't played in the game. And let's say that we play this here. I'm just theoretically showing you. This rook is actually eyeballing all the way through to the rook on e1. Even though this piece is involved, the bishop's involved, the queen's involved, it's eyeballing this rook on e1. You got to see what grandmasters see is they see through the pieces. They see through the position. That's why, Simon Williams was okay to take via that way, because he sees that his rook eyeballs all the way through that pawn on h3. He sees it right on to h1. And so that's why when they say, always remember to, when your queen is lined up with a rook, that's why they say to kind of move the queen over and get out of the line of the rook. Like this rook here, it'd be really bad if this queen were over here. Let's see, right? I don't know why my thing's not working. Well, okay, queen here goes to queen there. And this rook, in theory, is looking straight onto that queen, even though these two pawns are in the way on d4 and d5. This rook is X-raying right onto that. And so you can actually make plans based on that. You can win pawns based on that. It's really cool. Excuse me, let me get a sip here. Okie dokie. So bishop b4. You'll take the bishop here. You could take the knight here. Pawn takes, and then there. That's why when he played here, there, and takes, knight takes. Do you see how all these pieces, the majority of white's pieces, are on the queen side? There's two. This is going to be interesting. I'm curious to see how this actually goes, because if Simon is able to, he can actually, in theory, take this bishop with this knight. The bishop takes knight, and at a certain point, if this bishop moves off its rank or its file or diagonal, the knight could actually pop in here and into there, and it would just be a mess. So the knight retreats back. Man, that was, in my opinion, a really good move on White's decision. That was a very, very nice move. I'm thinking that he might want to, after, he might want to play bishop d, but see, that would be moving a piece twice. I'm thinking that potentially after White gets another move, I would probably put my bishop on b2. Bishop b2 is strong. It attacks this bishop all the way to this pawn, right through. It's sniping all that right there. Okay, let's see what happens. Knight f6. Now Simon's fully developed. They've all entered a middle game. Now, if the bishop wants to be 100% in the middle game, you have to develop all your pieces to when the rooks are connected. If the rooks are connected, you've entered a middle game. Yes, you have. So c3. This has a slight disadvantage. It now puts another pawn on a dark square, which makes this dark square bishop very bad. White has one trump advantage, and it's his light squared bishop. So what White's wanting to do is try to get a dominance on the light squares. And so if he can actually play bishop like b2, he can have a dominance from the h1 to a8 diagonal. So that's a killer position right there. Simon retreats back. He's now trying to, if he can, to probably develop this rook here. Maybe move his knight back. I'm trying to figure out. Well, I think if he moves his knight here, I think Simon would probably bring his knight there, there, there. You have to ask yourself, where do you want this piece? Right here. Oops. Actually, let's go there. Where do you want this knight? So you have to ask yourself, where do you want this knight? Where? And so that's a big thing that you have to always remember. Okay, dokie. So now the knight played to d2. Oh, there we go. Knight takes. Bishop comes up. So now you get to see about the x-ray all the way to the rook. This bishop wants these two, so Simon can actually pick up a whole pawn. He comes back, now he's a pawn advantage. This bishop, a dark square bishop's a horrible piece. He now is perfectly placed to start the onslaught. Rook attacks the bishop, knight comes in. Now we're just gonna slowly get through. If you like what you see, please subscribe or sub. That'd be much appreciated. And we have some emotes too, if you like. You can have those when you sub or follow. Okie dokie. Let's see. You can play here, and then you could attack the bishop there, or play rook here. This is going to be an interesting position. So knight, rook h5. You're attacking this bishop. So, oops, my bad. That's not where it wants to move. It plays to bishop to f4. That's a very strong position. And you can actually now he could put his knight in here, bring his bishop if he wants to here, double up his rooks. His rooks involved. It's going to start becoming. See, there we go. I didn't even look at it, and we actually saw what the move sequence was. Also, white now has a disadvantage in the pawns. We have to look and see to ourselves what is the advantage for black, what is the advantage for white. And what you got to do is you have to ask yourself, what um, look at the pawn structure, then you can kind of judge. Like, let's see how many pawn islands we have. We have one for Simon, and then you have two. So these are one pawn island. These are one pawn island. White has one pawn island here, has a pawn island here, and then has a pawn island. So 3 pawn islands to 2. And if we went to an end game, Simon Williams would be beating Rudder totally. So that's why he's okay with trades. He's okay with the trading of pieces. Then we have knight, rook e2. We have rook ef. He went rook d6 to f. Up here he rovered it to f6 here. Now he's attacking the knight. He might even play this, doubling up rooks, and he's going to be willing to trade one more rook off for 2 minor pieces if he can keep in the endgame. Now we've entered a very interesting position. We've entered an isolated pawns 2. It's actually 3. Now let's take a look at Simon Williams' position. My opinion, I think he's probably maybe a whole pawn and a half ahead. Let's look at the pawn chains. He has how many pawn chains? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, and he has 4 pawn chains. If they're connected, like if there was pawns here and here, this would be considered one complete pawn island. But because it's not, they're individually pawn chains or pawn islands. So Simon Williams still has his 2 pawn islands, where Rudder has 4. And so now, if all these pieces ended up coming off the board, if we can just take them all off the board, and we just were down to kings, black would be in a superior position. Actually, it would probably be resignable at this point. Black probably would just be winning, and white would just probably have to just throw in the towel and say, we'll play another game later. Forgive me for drinking your ears, I apologize. Okay, let's do this thing. Keep going. Rook f4. Now what he's doing is he's tripling up on this isolated pawn. He's also attacking these 2 pawns. This knight is going to be eventually overworked. One of these pawns are going to fall. And you're thinking, but what about here? He's got this covered. His knight's covered there, and his other knight. So this knight covers here. This knight covers here. There's no infiltration points for this rook. So he can go on this, as I like to say, on this Sally Ho type of, or Sally Forth type of position with the knights. Here comes the knight. Okay, he's attacking here. Let's see, and sweet, that was a nice tactic. Because if bishop takes now, here, the knight comes in, and he now wins, and he's in a superior position. I think he's 2 pawns up. Yep, he's 2 pawns up. You see down here? 2 pawns up. So that's why the rook falls back. We have check. He grabs another pawn, so he's 3 pawns up and ready to rule. He now has f4 coming, and now the knight's just rerouting. It's going to slowly but steadily destroy his opponent. The bishop comes there. He retreats back. Now it comes the knight. More pieces. If more pieces come off the board, then there's more of a sitch. Now he's threatening this rook, and he's threatening this bishop. There's no way to save both. So at that point, his opponent Rudder resigns. And if you take scope on what actually happened, the whole, in my opinion, lost position is when. Let me see here. I think it's when Rudder went a little too strong on the king side. He should have tried to unwind his pieces, trade off pieces, or go in for maybe trying to stop this queen. maybe just do something. But then he got to this position here where it was a total mess. His pawn chain, his knight, his I apologize. I got to go back here. I'm going to show you something. This at this point right now, white is actually superior to black because how cramped this position is here. But when he took the bishop, now Simon Williams' position is not cramped anymore. He can actually play his bishop out, his knight out, and he can start infiltrating into the position. And that's the cool thing that's happening. And so now we figured out that when that happens, you'll end up winning games because you'll put your opponent in the squeeze, or they'll just blunder like what happened here. So let's see another game. We have William TP Gilbin. We'll just call him William, and then we'll call Simon, and the other person William, so that we don't get it mixed up. Or I'll just do white black because they have this one has the same last name, almost very similar, but without an S. So okay. I know what I'll do. I'll call him Ginger GM. There you go. Ginger GM is black because it's sometimes when they have similar last names, we might get confused. So Ginger GM is black and Williams is white. Let's see what the opening ended up, what it started out as. It went into a winner, a potential classic. Always moving towards a classic variation. This is an interesting position. You could do the Makut variation, which is this move here. Then you have this move, and then you actually can play knight takes here, pawn takes, and up here. And you're thinking, what about here? You just take, and then you play rook. And this is the Makut variation where black has a lot of advantage. His pawn chain is better. He has one complete pawn chain, where white has in theory two, but in theory, if these ever get divided, then it would be three. So he has three pawn islands to white's to black's one, and this pawn is eventually going to fall off the board if the queen really can't stop that. So that's why if Simon wanted to be kind of a little bit of a fighter, or Ginger GM wanted to be going down like that, he could do the Makut. Some people just want to do this. This is also a Steinitz type of setup as well. He was actually known for playing the French, and there's the Steinitz classical variation. So we're gonna get to see what ends up happening here is white trades off black's best bishop, which is the dark square bishop, and that's why it slightly favors white, the classic variation. But what's going to be happening though that's good for black though is they're moving towards an endgame where pieces start getting liquidated, which that doesn't. Then it's not as important on the dark light squared bishop as much. So when that happens, off the board they come. Wow, he actually kept the. He allowed him to keep his bishops. That's interesting. The castle here, and he's not even taking the dark square bishop. Very, very interesting. Simon's like, take it. So that if takes here, he can then take back here, and now everything's unwound, and white can basically play via this way, and his light square bishop is not a problem anymore. So right here he plays back, then e5. This is getting interesting. Then d5 here. Bishop comes back. He's now saying, you know what? If you're not going to take it, I'm going to save it, and that's a very good idea. Now all of black's weaknesses is gone. He's good. His bishops are clean this way, clean here. There is no bad bishop anymore. So he's Operation Go on that one. This is a really good one. So let's see here. He plays bishop d6 to hold his pawn. He's also getting ready to play an interesting continuation. If he can get rook e8, and let's say that white plays something like, we'll say something like this here. He castles. Uh-oh, you have an idea, but still there's the knight can take. So that's still an okay position. So let's delete here. Now if there's a check, he just moves his king. But you got to remember, this pawn right here is called a hook. A hook, a hook, a hook. And if a hook happens and that you have the opportunity to castle opposite side, the majority of the time it's good, because then you can just start just rolling that pawns down the board and go pow, explode the king side open, and you'll be the one to win the game. And there it goes, white. And white's going after ginger right now. And so it's going to be interesting. Let's see what happens. Knight comes in, so he's going to try to start trading down pieces. He might even try playing rook e1, bishop to g4, and seeing if he can't get a pin going. Takes, takes, takes. More pieces come off the board, less problem for black. Now he's got his sweet, sweet pawn going up the board. Let's see what happens here. He takes, takes. And in comes, now he won a rook. So the game is up in exchange. Let's get a drink really quick. Now Simon's going to try to trade off all the way down here. So let's see what happens here. And he wins a pawn. But now the next idea is this. It's equal, but now he's got a weakness here, so this is a really not a very good endgame type of setup. Even though white doesn't have a rook, it's going to be hard for black to actually break down the defenses. Surprisingly, this is going to be a difficult type of setup, because if white can get c4, b3, and cement the lock down the center, he in theory his knight can outmaneuver the rook. There's the first lockdown. Now white's got a passed pawn, so black's got to be careful here. But now it's game, set, match. I think what lost the game was when he played that move. I'm not so sure if But this, I think it's still winning for black here. I'm just trying to, let's see what they're saying. Okay, one pawn. And it's completely over now. So let's see about, we'll do another one. And you got to see how slowly but steadily when you build up a position and you base it on pawn islands, you will get a dominant position. So let's just see right here how we're doing.
Oops, I almost forgot. Sorry about the headset thing. There we go. Let's see here. Now we got a dominant position. Alright, we're going to move on to the next one. And Simon Williams again is black, and we'll just call him I, because I don't know how to pronounce his name. I think it's Russian. So I'm not sure how to pronounce that Russian name. We'll just say white black. White Simon, black is his opponent. So, Simon's black and his opponent's white. So let's see what variation. They went to the advanced. This is one of the most you're going to see. There's probably only going to be really two that you're going to see. I'm going to say three. In the French defense, you're going to see mainly the advanced variation because that goes all the way out to like 3 to 4 moves. Then you're going to be able to see the next one's probably the exchange variation. And the third one probably is the classical variation. The Makut and the Alakine clad variations, you're not really going to see because you're going to have to know a lot of theory based on those. So there we go. There's the French. And then now we're going into the advanced. The advanced variation is when white locks down the position with e5. And then what white's trying to do is completely take control of the center. And if white can keep his pawns on e4, e5, and d4, he can actually dominate black because of squeezing his position. And so see now this is the main line. I'll show you. Knight there, queen comes out, bishop comes out, takes. Now we've entered. Now why people play the French advanced is you've already had 7 moves, completely 7 moves played out, and you're almost out of the opening into the middle game. That's why the advanced is very popular at club level. So knight h6, and then b3. Because the idea is if white were to move his bishop to like somewhere like here, that leaves a pawn on pre, and at this point, all black's got to do is just retreat his queen out, get his queen back, and he's up a whole pawn for nothing. So that's why he plays b3 first, so that if he wants to, he can then take the knight. But if he took the knight first, let's say he took this knight first, right? You can actually do an in-between move of queen takes b2, and if pawn if bishop takes here, and this is still hanging, and I don't see anything for white. I think it's equal, but it's still slightly better for black. So that's why he plays that, so that if he wants to, he can actually grab this knight. But the knight doesn't want to be grabbed. It wants to come in here. This idea is the old French advanced variation, which has every single piece eyeballing the d4 square. That's white's weakest point, is d4, pawn d4. And so white wants to, if he can, trade off all the pieces and keep this locked down so that in an endgame, white's better because of the pressure. So bishop b2. White's trying their hardest to keep as many defenders on there as they can. And then boom, here comes a check. This is a very important move here. Vital, vital, vital. The king has to move. The interesting thing is, I know what you're thinking, what if the knight intercepts? Well, you have an interesting predicament you have here. You have here, 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 and Simon Williams is up in a complete pawn. So he can't block the queen. You're actually, in this move here, I know what you're thinking, what about moving back? Same exact problem, you lose. So that's why he had to, after this, move his king. Was he can't risk blocking any of his pieces, otherwise the pawn on d4 will just collapse. When that pawn collapses, the whole center falls apart and black will become victorious. Bishop e7, g3, f6, king g2, f takes e5, d takes e5, and now the bishop comes out. Now black has accomplished a big, big thing. He broke the bind in the center. I've had a similar position like this when I played at OTV, like Simon did in 1994. He did that. And what I found is after I castled here, I was able to eventually get this pawn on e5 off the board. And at that point, I had these two mobilized and also I got to tell you, these two pawns were gone. So I had two passed pawns, and I was able to just basically squeeze my opponent, and basically that my opponent imploded on their moves, and they just basically fell apart, and I was able to pick up a nice one on that one. That was nice. Good memories, good memories. So now if bishop takes, I can play rook takes, and we got this thing a-going. So white actually castled by hand. So they're white safe, black safe. It's going to be now down to positional play. And by the way, we have to look at how many pawn islands each player has. Simon Williams has 3 pawn islands. One here, one here, one here. There. Here. And his opponent has 1 pawn island. Or 2, I mean. And this is 1 pawn island, this is 1 pawn island here. So if all the pieces got traded off, Simon Williams would be slightly worse in this position at an endgame. So knight c e7. You're going to start to learn by pawn islands if you want to keep it in the middle game or if you want to go into an endgame. You're gonna learn. Excuse me. g4. Now this is a kind of standard move that gets played when you're starting to advance. They're going to try to kick your pieces back, and that kicked it back. Knight comes in. He's undiscovering and protection on this pawn. And now, in theory, he could potentially bring a rook up. He could play here. It's getting kind of scary. I'm not sure would rook takes actually work here. Rook takes, bishop takes. Maybe queen there, with the idea of bringing the doubling up there. Probably bishop back. The rook's doubled up. You'd probably have to play the knight to g6 here, which then adds more protection on the f8 square. So there'd be no back rake mates, and also stops any of this type of stuff we don't like. We don't like. Okay, let's continue onward. So he pushed him back. You see, remember when he came here, he played up here, there,
bishop. Now he's threatening to have a discovery. A discovery of d4, check, and picks up a knight. The bishop now goes, hey, do your discovery, bro. I'm going to win your knight. And by the way, my discovery is my attack's gonna be worse because I'll be attacking your rook, even though you win a knight. That's why the knight retreats back. But now look what it's eyeballing. It's eyeballing the e pawn, the one pawn we wanted. Now black's got two threats. He's got the threat of winning the pawn on e5. He's also got the threat of playing d4, and that would make a huge attack, and everything's going to be coming down the board really fast. Okay, so now he's playing that to guard, but this weakens the king side, so it's really black. White's starting to get very weak. Everything's starting to fall apart here. There you go, a rook. There drops a rook. An exchange. Now he's down in exchange, white. In comes the play. Simon's slowly building up. And we're almost, see, there goes the trade. There it is. Now he's gonna take advantage of his two pawn advantage here. He's gonna start trading down. The next idea is gonna be rook here, and maybe knight. Interesting for sure. I think maybe the move would be knight e3, rook coming in, something like that. Interesting continuation. There we go. He moves, locking down. You don't want to unleash this. Then you're unleashing all of the front line is gone onto your QB, and basically everybody's just going to pile up on the QB and hurt him really bad. So Simon's playing down. He's locking down, positionally playing. He's getting ready for heading into an endgame. The interesting thing is, I know you're thinking, why can't he just play here? Good question. He would play knight takes, and then now, in theory, he can unwind his pieces with checking, coming up, and then bringing back around. So, interesting position. So now he's giving back the exchange, but he's doing it on his own terms, where he's up an entire pawn. This guy's king is going down. Takes. Remember, we're still in a semi-closed position. This is, the pawns are locked here. So black could actually just maneuver. Now he's going to get his pawn going. If he plays here, up the board the pawn goes. There you go. And the game is game, set, match. Okie dokie. I think we'll probably stop right here. And thank you for bearing with me on my mic. I forgot it was up here. I appreciate your patience on that. And I still hope you watch, even though it was kind of a little maybe when I was talking light. But if you like what you see, please subscribe and follow. We have some emojis on our tier 1, so you can get those by subscribing, and we can have a lot of fun and keep pushing forward. And like what we always say, remember to honor the Lord Jesus with the gifts he has. And again, like what we always say is God bless. And I'll see you next time on Chess Cruncher TV, my friends. Be blessed. Bye-bye. Hey,
you guys doing? All right. Okay. Let's see here. All right. I'm on the stream. Okay, dokie. We're just checking to make sure everything's working, my friends. Don't you worry. Sometimes it takes a little bit, so we'll do some puzzles while we're waiting. And that should help a little bit. Let's do not rated so that we don't lose rating and we're learning and improving and getting better. Okay. Alright. There it is. So now we have to figure out if rook and queen takes h7, king takes, rook takes. I don't think there's anything there, but there is a interesting continuation of what if we play rook h1. That would take here. We take here, and then we win. Do you see all that? Isn't that great? We did it, we did it, we did it. And we're learning without worrying about rating points and everything. So that's great. Excuse me. Let's see here what we got here. Till we get used to the process again. Because some of these are a lot different than chess base and all the other cool stuff that's going on. You gotta love it for sure, for sure. And let me check and make sure I have all this right. Okay. Excellent. There we go. I'm trying to figure out after she takes, pawn takes, knight takes. What if completely knight takes? Then you have bishop. Then you have bishop there, and it's like, So is the pin worth it there? I'm gonna go with it. Yep. Take there. Okay, that's actually a really good one. Really good puzzle there. Really good. So now we have a knight and a pawn, and there is an outside pass pawn. So we have to now think, how can we use our advantage of our outside pass pawn? And that's the cool thing. Okay. Let's see here, there. Okay, perfect. Trying to figure out if we can't. Let's see if we play here. Let's see if he can actually stop it. There. Yep, he stops it. But if we play here, then he plays there. We actually could, in theory, stop his advance by playing king c6. And at that point, we actually will defeat him. And we'll be good. So let's try that. Oh, okay, what is it? That first? I'm curious. Interesting. Why is that? But I think the reason that is to stop here, but they could still come in via this way. And that's why after knight comes up, king there, it prevents this and still allows this push to happen. Okay. Sometimes you have to make sure that you're seeing what you're actually supposed to be seeing. Okay, dokie. So let's take a look here. If we actually play, I'm trying to think. Let's go back here. Let's see what the move was. You always gotta look for the drawback. Okay, when the queen moved to e5, e4, the drawback is this whole line here. Here is given up. There's given up. That could potentially be an attack there. You have to always look at these things. This is a sitch. These are the squares that the queen gave up. And so you have to see if you can actually take advantage of anything. It goes back to the Quito principle. If you like what you see, we have some emotes that you can get if you subscribe or follow. So there's that's always out there. So let's see what we got here. Try to figure out if we could play maybe rook. These are the tricky squares. There's also a potential discovery with this knight, so maybe knight d5 with a discovery on here. But actually, I think that would potentially be mate if I'm not mistaken. Here, queen takes, rook takes is mate, so you can't move the knight. So yeah, always got to be looking at those ideas. If queen takes rook, knight, queen takes. These are tricky. Maybe f3. Not really sure if f3 is a good move or not. Maybe the interesting thing it could be one of these two moves here because the queen and the rook are aligned. I think it might be knight c2 because that allows for the protection of this pawn, and then you don't take there. We do retreat back. Come up. That's interesting. No, it's there. Okay. Takes. Okay, let's go back and see why that. And then we figured out the correct move here. This is the interesting continuation. If knight, if queen there. Let me see. I'm just trying to figure out why was that the best. Maybe it's because it pins. Is it because it pins the pawn? And if you guys see anything more, just put it in and we could take a look to see. I know attacks the knight. Oh, I know why. Silly me. It keeps in contact with the this knight here. Otherwise, the knight falls. So if we had moved something like if we can't, we have to keep in contact with the knight. Like if we move queen back, the rook falls, and we don't have time to take the rook because the queen would take with mate. Okay, that's it. That's it. Okay, now we know. Just gotta keep pushing forward, finding out what the correct continuations are, and that's how you get better. You have to challenge yourself. Say, why was this right? I don't understand why. Go through it, walk through it, and you'll be able to get better at as a chess player that way. Okay, this is an interesting one. Bishop check, and then the rook has to take, and it's mate. This one's straightforward. Oh, it's a wait. Always a check. Okay, that handles a lot of the sitch. So maybe king f2. If queen checks, king g7. I mean g3. Bishop check. Rook checks, bishop takes, queen takes, then rook takes, king takes. We win the queen. I believe this is the right continuation here. Okay. Let's see if we play rook takes, bishop check. See, rook takes, queen takes, bishop check, king comes over. But if we play check, king comes up, check, king comes over, check. So, trying to figure this one out. I'm trying to see if we can't get this to work, but the king then can actually flee at that point, but then the rook's pinned. So the rook can't take. But at that point, we could actually potentially bring another rooks. Like if we come over here, king comes, and then we could actually play rook e1. And if rook takes, then queen takes is check. King moves over, check. Uh, queen, queen here. Queen moves over, check. I don't know. Maybe that doesn't work. That is interesting for sure. For sure, good buddy. Interesting. Over here, up. Interesting. Nice. That is a very nice counter pin to the attack, because what happens is you're taking advantage of this open line here. Very, 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 very cool continuation. Because the rook can't take here, because if the rook took, you lose the queen. And if the rook takes over here, you have the same bishop check when the comes up here, and that's checkmate. So you either lose a queen, you go down a whole queen, or you basically continue get mated. That's basically the whole thing. Wow, very nice. That's a nice one. You see why you go over these? It's been a while since I've done these lead chess puzzles. They're really high leveled and they're really fun to do. They're super duper duper fun. And so you gotta always learn from them, improve, and you can get better. Okie dokie. And if you want to, you can always challenge. We could do a casual game. I could play the viewers a casual game. But I usually do 10-minute ones because 10-minute ones are the one, in my opinion, one of the most fun ones because then you actually can think. Otherwise, it's just reactive chess. You're not learning anything. So let's see if there's any tournament things going on that we can play one. Let's see here. 3 minute. Wow, yearly. That's a year one. That's a weekly. Let's see who's in this one. This is one they're streaming. Okie dokie. So let's join it. Let's do it. Give it 5, 4, 2, and we'll see if they're willing. We'll give it another. We'll count for 5. See, and if not, then we'll do something else. 1, 3, 4, and 5. So nobody's trying. We'll try one last time and see. Nope. We'll try one more. One more. Okay, perfect. Come on. We'll see how this works. We're going to set up for a London system. Let's see if we could do that. I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is actually the black lion. This is the tame lion here. Now they'll probably bring the queen here. Yep, it's the tame lion. We'll just bring the bishop out. We'll just develop normally and see what we can play. Just retreat back because we have to keep with this pin, otherwise there'll be a fork and we'll lose our bishop. Through a fork. So let's attack here. Let's castles, get out of this here. There's doubling up, and now we do have an idea of potentially playing. Yeah, let's just push this pawn up, stop any of the forking ideas. Now we have the ability to play against this pawn here. We'll eventually start playing maybe even h4, h5, something like that. We'll see if we can't win this pawn here. See if we can't kick this knight out here. Oh, interesting. Interesting. So now we got a hook. So we can play against that hook. Let's retreat back so that we're not gonna get any forking ideas here. And what we might even do is try to double up rooks, bring this rook over. What the also an idea is to potentially reroute our by playing rook over, reroute our knight via maybe something like this here and into there, and then we can get potentially maybe f4 going. So we have to look to see what's going on here. He's got an idea of potentially dropping a knight in, but that would actually take pawn, bishop takes, so knight in here, bishop takes. Oh, interesting. He wants to play there. That's not too bad. Trying to see if we can actually potentially play knight here, attack the bishop. Bring the rook over. Oops, so that was my mistake there. Oof, that was a close little mistake there. Can't play there. I'm gonna play queen up. Oh, that was a close one. Let's see. Play b6. Let's play queen up here. Now we're gonna try to lock this position down here with that move, and we should have a pretty solid position if he plays down there. We'll probably have to play bishop back here and see if we can't reroute our knight in via that way. There's a lot of play still here, and we're also time up, so we have to keep that. And then we'll go over some of these moves that we were talking about. Let's see. Let's take down there. Let's see if we can't develop and get a little bit of attack going here. This should be okay. So it's gonna try to reroute in via there. Let me see here. This might be a good idea here with a pin. Okay, so it plays up there. Let's bring our rook over. Now we have the idea of snapping off that pawn with check. Okay. We still have this idea of doubling up, which would win material. And so now what we'll do is we'll play rook takes, and we now have the ability of fully retreating our bishop back if we have to. And also if this knight's in a big problem. So I'm thinking about, let me see if I play here, here, and then to there. That might, because we have to get our knight rerouted in. Interesting, he wins a pawn here, but just temporarily. There we go. Let's see if we can't infiltrate in. Let's come down with check. See if we can't infiltrate via into. Now we're good. We got into his position. Let's see if we can't somehow. We have to get our king involved now. Get our knight reactivated. I'm trying to see. Takes and then knight comes in. We'll see if we can't get our king involved. We control the only open file at the present moment. Actually, there's two, but let's see if we can't get our. See if we can't get. Oh, interesting. So, man, it's too bad I couldn't somehow kick this knight out. trying to figure out. I think that now we're getting close to where we actually potentially win a. There we go. This is kind of getting tough, but we're hanging in there. We're not giving up, not one bit. There we go. Just keep it going. We're not gonna lose. We're pushing, 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 pushing. Check. Check. Let's lock this bishop in here. Yeah, it's over. Oh wow. see here. Let's see if we can't infiltrate in here. Trying to. Ah, darn. Close. Try one more. That was a good game. We didn't lose. We only lost on time. That's a bummer sometimes. Oh, 14. We should be able to. Put this. Let's see here what we got. So takes. That comes up. Now we're threatening to potentially win this pawn here. And if that's going to be a big win. Nice. Just bring the king up. No reason to get all excited. Okie dokie, he's having to think about this one. Interesting. He has to figure out if he could actually play the move that he's thinking. This is a tricky position. Hmm. I think he blew his position with this one move. Yeah, I think he had a way to trap my queen. I was very blessed that he didn't see it. Yeah, this is. He might actually drop on this one here. He might actually resign. He has 4 minutes. Just win that bishop, get it out of there. Now I'm turning the tide on him, on the person. There we go. Trying to trade down. Just trying to stop any infiltration. Trading down because we're up 3 pawns. So no reason to, go happy. Just go straight in for the KO. Let's keep going. Setting the pawn right up the board. There we go. There it is. There we go. Now we're gonna win this. That move wins on the spot. That was a good win there. What we'll do is we'll go back. do one big pairing and then I don't think that was the let me see here. Let's see if we can actually win this pawn here. Okay, so probably here would be an interesting continuation. We're staying ahead of the time, and that's what's important right now. Okie dokie. Let's see if we can't trade off the bishops and then plot my knight in right here. Beautiful outpost. A beautiful, beautiful outpost. We got him. They're thinking, they're thinking, they're thinking. This is getting close, just getting tight. I think that potentially if he takes, and he thinks that he could trade down, we actually got him with queen takes, and that's mate. We got him. Thinking, let me see if here. Trying to figure out if say check. Yeah, this is the winning move. At least a draw. Tactic. Let's analyze this here. This is very interesting predicament we're in here. I want to go through the entire thing because I think at one point we might have been winning. Let me see here. So far, so good. So we found the right continuation. Let's try one more. Because you know what? Not a big deal. As long as you learn from it. And then now we'll set up for the French. Let's do the French defense. I think we're going to win this pawn here. I think we got him with this pawn right there. We're still good. We're still good. There we go.